Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday, which can only mean one thing, unless I've had too much to drink. It's the Tuesday night show. How are you doing? And just to prove that you can be in two places at once, you can now watch us live if you are subscribing or watching us on YouTube. And our YouTube channel is Leicester Till I Die TV, which is that way. Or obviously on Facebook, if you are watching us on Facebook, live on Facebook that way, Leicester Till I Die. Can I just say, if you are watching on Facebook, feel free to comment. We want your comments. We want your questions to come in tonight. If you are using StreamYard, which you will be doing, if you're not registered with them, you will just come up as Facebook user. And it's always nice to give people a shout out. So register. There's no joining fee. There's nothing to download. It's free of charge. You literally just register, and then your name and Facebook profile comes up, and we can give you a shout out. So please do that. Or if not, stick your name at the end. Just end it with Rob, Chris, Paul, whatever at the end. Obviously, only if you're called Rob, Chris, or Paul. Anyway, hey, how are you doing? It's top of the league, top of the Europa League. It's great times for us. I mean, since those, shall we call them for politeness, newer fans, since they've joined us, of course, we have been doing great. But likes of me, and with all respect, Craig, those of us that have been around the block a few times will remember the Leicester City of old, and it's been a roller coaster ride following Leicester City, up and down more times than a bride's night on a wedding night, I'll tell you. But like I say, at the moment it's great times. Do you remember the 90s? This guy does. Barrie Pierpoint, and he was Chief Executive for Leicester City during the 90s. Now, do you remember the 90s? Well, if you want to know about the 90s, on the 7th of December, he's bringing out his book. I love the title, Minding My Own Football Business. And it's got contributions from 40-odd people associated with the club, including Emil Heskey, Simon Grayson, and Tony Cottee. And the foreword is by Barry's own admission, his favourite player from his time at Leicester, Steve Walsh. Having said that, I wouldn't like to go up to Steve and say that he wasn't my favourite player, but let's bring Barry in and say a very good evening, Barry.
Hello there, good evening to you. Welcome.
How the devil are you?
Oh, well, I'm fine. I'm very well fine in these challenging times and conditions. I'm very well, thank you.
I think if we can say we're all right, that's as good as we can hope at the moment. Matthew's saying, evening, Chris, from Glasgow tonight. I don't know what you're doing in Glasgow. You must have been a naughty boy to have been sent there, but nice to have you on board, Matthew. And hi, Chris, hope you're okay. Like I say, it's Facebook user, so I can't give you a call out. We've got the Bronze Plumber. Good evening, Bronze Plumber on YouTube. Nice to have you along. And I don't know if I am. Somebody's saying I'm muffled. I don't know if I'm coming across muffled to you at all, Barry, or can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. I think it might be better if it's a little bit slightly sharper. I think it is a little bit. It's okay, but it's.
Yeah. I think it's the fact that I'm of where I'm sat and just trying to get somewhere. Either the sound gives a little bit of a light. I can't have both.
You're not in the toilet.
Almost, just about in my kitchen. But like I say, you were cities, and you do obviously go over this in the book. But you were a big part of Leicester City in the 1990s. You were our first chief executive, although you didn't join the club as the chief executive. How did you come to be working for Leicester at all? How did that come about?
Well, the club wanted to find a director of marketing, basically, to come in and start raising some finance for the club off the field. Basically, somebody with a business brain, somebody with a marketing a skilled marketing person who could come in and develop the commercial opportunities, as well as look at other opportunities for sponsorships. And the main thrust was to build a new stand to replace the member stand, which was just about falling to bits in the 90s.
Oh, yes. And then obviously you made your way up to Chief Executive.
Well, the funny thing is, when I first went to the club, I mean, there was very little marketing at all. I don't think half of the directors knew what marketing meant. And it took a long time for me to get there because it took 6 months and about 4 interviews later I got there. And I got there by mistake. But that's another story. And I won't go into too much detail because the book explains how I arrived there. But what the job for me to do was to raise £5.5 million for a new stand and to develop the commercial opportunities, which really weren't very developed when I went there. Matter of fact, they were non-existent. And also to get more involved with the community and put Leicester City on the map. Because when I first joined there, a lot of people in Leicester thought the club was not really a very friendly club, nor was it a club that was going anywhere. And I had to convince them with my vision and with my sort of thoughts and objectives that Leicester City Club is a club for going places. It took time to prove that, but eventually it did because of all the successes I had with the team around me. Together we were very successful.
I mean, it was sort of the latter half of the year, and I know this is something Craig will come on to when he joins us in a minute. It was a very successful end to the 1990s, but you said the big thing for you at the start was the carling stand, which I always remember Martin O'Neill used to say he used to introduce players by bringing them out backwards onto the pitch so that they could see the carling stand. I mean, it actually made the rest of the ground look worse than it probably was, but it was an amazing structure. And you raised the money, obviously.
Well, it was raised by a whole range of means. And again, it was through grants, and it was through companies giving us money for boxes up front. It was through debenture systems. It was through vice presidents putting large sums of money in. It was for sponsorship through breweries who paid for the name of the stand and pouring rights of all the drinks in the stadium. A lot of different ways of doing it, but it was a very hard job trying to convince people to part with money with a football club that really hadn't been doing much. And it wasn't until Brian Little came on the scene a couple of months after I started that Brian and I worked very close together. And that's how things started to develop. He took the playing side and really took them to the top. And I went with all the commercial side and the business side. And with my team, we managed to start making things happen as well.
I mean, it's quite funny when you think about a football club and how huge the commercial side of any club is these days. To, like you say, it was almost like an afterthought back in the day.
It was very hard in those days because, today in football, most clubs have got quite a lot of income coming through in different ways and means. When I went to Leicester, there was nothing there at all. The money that you received was very small. The income was very small. The commercial opportunities hadn't been exploited, which is one of the things I did. And basically, we had to raise money to pay to make the club more successful and also help to buy some players because the profitability that we created on the commercial side was the way of putting money into the pot so that people like Brian, who was very careful with his spending. I mean, Brian bought a player for 50 grand and I asked for a £50,000 marketing budget. And the board looked to be gone out. And somebody said around the table, oi, we can buy a player for 50 grand. I said, I want 50 grand. It's going to last me for the next 4 or 5 years. And it'll probably raise quite a few million, which it did.
Yes, yeah. I think, unfortunately, at that time as well, we were always known almost as a selling club, weren't we, as well? Like, we'd get the players in. But Brian Little, he really, to my sort of memory, he was the one, and we'd had little bits of success before then, but he was the one, to me, just before Martin, that sort of got, it was a successful period with him. We were having, it was almost like a yearly day out at Wembley for the playoffs under Brian Little.
I've got to put my hat off to Brian Little. He achieved so much with so little, and that's not a pun because Brian didn't spend a lot of money, and he brought in players that nobody had ever heard of before, who actually put their heart and soul into the job and played for the club. It wasn't about the money for them, it was about the playing and getting the results and working together as a team. And I have to say, I was very enamoured by Brian and the way he motivated people and got the best out of them, and the small amount of spending he did. And look what we did with Brian. We went to Wembley a few times, and he really did miracles. And I think that's a testament to the management style he had.
Yeah, I always think he's a very, very underrated manager, and sort of when you go back and look at sort of, certainly for me, past managers and who's your favourite manager, he should be up there. But like you say, for what he achieved for us, but it wasn't to be. And I've got to be honest with you, I mean, he did leave under a little bit of a cloud, and I suppose it's easy for me to say now, but to me, a bit like when Martin went to Celtic, it's almost like Villa was his club, and it didn't seem to sort of be handled very well. I don't know on any side. There's that sort of, he was going, he's not going to work, and then he signed immediately for them, and lies and all that. But was it bad feeling when he left?
Well, people got to realise, and I think the problem with some fans, they don't know the full story, and you only hear what the press want to tell you and how they slanted position it, and that's the problem I had with the press all the way down the line. They're very good at positioning things. But Brian, listen, any manager who is approached to take on a bigger role and a bigger job somewhere else and feels that perhaps he's done what he can do with the sort of amount of funds he's got to play with, it would be silly not to go and join another club. And as much as they want to stay there for life, nobody stays anywhere for life, and opportunities come and they have to take them. I was poached 3 times to go and work for 3 different clubs while I was at Leicester City, but I didn't take that chance. I decided to stay with the club right to the very end.
We have to, we do tend to follow our clubs with blue tinted spectacles on for Leicester, and forget that these we're all fans. These managers aren't fans, and they really don't have a lot of connection with the club, other than the fact that we're giving them a lot of money to try and get us to win things.
But what they do is, while they're there at that club, like I did at the club I worked for, they put their heart and soul into it, and they give you everything, and they make sure that everything is focused on developing that club and making sure that the club benefits from all their expertise, knowledge, skills, and whatever you want to call it. And every manager does that. But in life, people have opportunities to do something else. And Brian went to a bigger club, and let's face it, it was sad to see him go. It was sad to see him go. But at the end of the day, career opportunities, you take them when you can.
And there's coming with a question here that I think I know who I would say, because that is the guy that then followed Brian Little, and the guy that fueled my hatred of Wolverhampton Wanderers with the quote, "I'm going to a bigger club," and that was Mark McGee. Was he the worst one for you?
No, I haven't got a worse manager, and I'm sorry to say that every manager I've worked with are all different in the way they approach things. They're all different people. They've all worked differently, and my job is not to not have worse people and good people. It's to work with everybody that I can and work to the best ability. Some managers receive you better than others, and I'm not in for saying who's good, bad, or indifferent. I enjoyed working with all of them. Some better than others, because others didn't all necessarily want to work with me as others did. So, but look, I've got a problem with that. There's no worse manager in my view.
He wasn't with us for long, Mark, and again, it's funny because, and it was only pointed out to me, and like I say, you don't always think of these things at the time, but I was fuming that Mark McGee had walked out on us to go to Wolverhampton Wanderers, but of course he'd left Reading to come to us, so he'd done exactly. Managers usually are in a job when we, like with Brendan Rodgers now, they are in a job when we go and get them.
But Mark came again. He was very dedicated to the cause. Unfortunately, he didn't stay very long. I know that, but an opportunity came along. But a club that probably is equal to our size, but had a lot more money to spend and do more things. he went to Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I actually worked very hard and closely with him to try and get him to stay. And I was on holiday at the time. I had to come back from abroad to sort of help Mark leave the club because he wanted to go. When somebody made their mind up they want to go, you've got to accept that and you've got to move on. And you know, again, I got on exceptionally well with Mark. He was a great guy to work with, very accommodating, like Brian. And at the end of the day, if they have an opportunity to go to a bigger club, more money to spend on players and do more things, then listen, it's about career moves. It's about, you know, going and taking on the next challenge. And that's what Mark did. Simple as that.
Yeah. And like I say, I think these days, when you look at what happened with Brendan Rodgers when he came here, we're just the same as it's always like, you always feel as a fan that it's your team that's getting picked on. But we mentioned your book, and it's Minding My Own Football Business. It's coming out on, like I say, the 7th of December. Where's it going to be available, Barry?
Well, we've got our own website, a book website called that, Minding My Own Football Business is one. Right. You can also get it on eBay and Amazon, and we're just negotiating with the distributor to put it in the shops, in local shops, and hopefully we might be in some retailers as well. But people can get hold of a copy quite easily. They can go on the website, the book website, and just go on there, or they can even contact me, and I can help them if they don't want to go on websites and do online shopping. I can help them. They can come and speak to me, or they can drop me an email. I've got a problem. We'll, you know, at the end of the day, it's a very interesting book. It's a lot of stories in there from different people, different players, managers, directors. It's fascinating. Even I've learned something about the football club I worked in for nearly 9 years from listening to all the things that I've read. All the things I read, and it's quite an interesting book. Yeah.
Well, I must admit, like I said, we had a little chat before we went live. I've got 4 kids, and it's on my Christmas list. You know, if one of them's got to get it, me surely, and if not, they're out the will. Yeah, but only because I've seen on the publicity the 2 questions, and like I say, I will read these when I get the book. Is we find out what Pontus Carmark said to Juninho in the League Cup final, but even more so, which Leicester City player waved a loaded gun at his teammates.
Well, if I told you those answers, it's no news. You wouldn't buy the book. So
exactly. I was going to say that's why I want to buy the book, if only for those 2 questions. But I'm sure it'll be a good read as well.
A lot of the questions in the book that you can read about what other people said and did and whatever. And you know, let me say this: the book is not just for people who were there in the 90s. It's for people who aren't even born, because they will learn a lot about their club that they didn't know at the time. Because today it's a different scenario. It's a different organisation. It's a bigger club, and you know, it's marvellous what's happened since the new owners took over. But in our time, we didn't have that situation. We didn't have that sort of money, that support, that backing, and you'll learn a lot about how things happened, and today how some of those things have carried on. I think we left a legacy after the 90s for people to build on that. And you've got a lovely club today. I mean, I love Leicester City today. It's a lovely club, and what they've done with it is incredible. And there's so much investment gone into it. And you know, the new owners there really have made a mark. We didn't have that opportunity, you know. But
I think we have the owners that every other fan wished their club had, you know. But Matthew just said, Barry, you're a brilliant diplomat, and I will agree with you on that.
I don't know about being a diplomat. It's about being sensible. I mean, I've got no qualms about my time at Leicester, even though it came to a terrible end for me. And it wasn't because of what I did wrong or I was no good at my job. It's just unfortunately that I was misrepresented in the media, and I think people didn't know full stories. And that book covers some of those issues. I'm not going to knock anybody. I'm not here to knock anybody. My book doesn't knock anybody. It's about being honest. It's about making sure everybody understands. If they want to know what happened to me and why I left along with 3 other directors, then it's all in that book, and it's very straightforward. And as I say, I have no qualms. I have no problems. And I don't really have any issues with anybody. I enjoyed my time there. I just think sometimes the media can actually put across the wrong information, and people only vote with their hands if they see the things that they see, and that's what they think they're being told, and that's what happens. You know.
Yeah, oh, I agree. Somebody there has very kindly put the website up where they can get it. But enough from me. I'm going to bring my colleague now who's probably going to maybe ask you a few of those points that you raised then. So I'm going to bring, yeah, the elephant in the room. It's been there for a while, and I think, and I'm not saying talking with elephants, we're going to bring Craig in. That's just how it works out. But I know Craig's got some questions. Good evening, Craig.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Barry. Yeah,
Hello, hello.
I've just been sitting here in the Leicester Till I Die freezer, waiting to be taken out. Now everything's thawed out. Some really interesting things that you've already said, Barry, and I think from a fan's point of view, I think this is going to be a great book because, as you say, you usually only get the view that is presented by the media, whatever media channel you want to subscribe to, and I guess there's a lot of people who would say the same thing going on in the USA with the election. You know, it depends what media channel, what story you actually get. But it's nice to actually have a viewpoint from within the club. As I say, at the time, reporting was not the greatest. I remember being at many matches and then reading Bill Anderson's report in the Mercury and wondering which match he'd been to because they were very different. But going on to obviously the dreaded Gang of Four, as you were all nicknamed, I feel like I'm doing the bad cop when Chris was the good cop here. Just a couple of things on it. What was the basic thing that caused the rift, without going into too much detail, obviously, because you know that will be in the book, but I read somewhere there was something to do with a transfer of Emil Heskey and not the proper due diligence in terms of speaking to all the board, whether that was a red herring or whether there was some deeper sort of divisions within it that brought it down to creating two factions within the club.
The problem has been all along is that the club had one or two people, including directors, who were never happy unless they were causing trouble and being disruptive. And you know, I'm not going to name those people. They know who they are because they're the ones that cause a lot of the problems. They in turn then got other members of the staff, people to do things behind the scenes and create disruption, create problems, divides, you know, conquer and divide sort of situations. This was all going on for years and years. So it's not something new. But over a period of time, the two managers I worked with initially, which was Brian and Mark, they didn't get involved in any sort of boardroom politics. And that's probably what I can call it, boardroom politics, where when people don't agree with, they should keep it in the boardroom and not go out into the public domain and start saying all the wrong things, nor using staff and management in the club to create problems behind people's backs, mainly myself, may I say, and one or two of the other directors. The Gang of Four was never a Gang of Four. It was a media term because four people were left in a boardroom when two people decided to resign over an issue that I will talk to you about in a minute. And then one of the director decided he wasn't very well, so left the meeting. This was a proper board meeting where four directors were not happy the way that the club was being run, slightly by one particular director who thought he was running his own business and didn't confer with anybody. Things just sort of happened, and other directors found out by mistake or by gossip or whatever. And you know, I'm being quite honest about it. I mean, I was the CEO charged with running a PLC business, which had to have corporate governance and which had to be run properly and professionally because we had shareholders to, you know, be accountable to. And when you've got one or two people doing their own thing and not doing things properly, it creates problems. And over a period of time, a couple of directors got very unhappy about the situation, and we did find out that there was some conversation about selling a player, mentioned, and that deal had already sort of been done without anybody knowing about it, and that created ruptions. In that boardroom on that particular day, there was going to be a vote of no confidence to remove a particular director, but unfortunately, things got out of hand where it was very heated, and a couple of the directors, the chairman there, football chairman and the PLC chairman decided to resign, and they did resign, and left us with 4 of us in a room when the finance director decided he didn't want to carry on in the meeting, he didn't go too well. We had to carry on. Listen, as a CEO, I have got the responsibility to run a business, and football is a business, whether you like it or not. It's a sport, it's a football club, but when we were a PLC, we were accountable to the stock market, and we're accountable to shareholders. And I had to act responsible. And we had to carry on that meeting, a board meeting, and they definitely resigned. And so therefore we decided to appoint a new chairman for the time being. We contacted those people who left the meeting to get round a table to sort this problem out, because we didn't want it to go public. But no, they decided they want to take it public and create a problem. And that's how it all started. But there had been, leading up to that, quite a lot of problems where some of the directors were not happy. Hence, that's why the Gang of Four was a term that was created by the media to sell newspapers and to give everybody a chance to have a go at Barrie Pierpoint and the other 3 guys who were really the good guys trying to run a business and look after the club in a proper and sensible way. We never went to the media. It was the people who walked out that went.
I think one of the things. Sorry, Chris. Just quick. Obviously, this was a proper board meeting, as you said, with all the directors there. Was anybody responsible for taking minutes? And surely, if so, do they exist?
I've still got the minutes at home. I've got minutes. I kept everything. I kept copies of everything. I have the minutes. Yeah, and there were minutes kept. Yeah, there were.
Because obviously, obviously, sorry, Barry. Obviously, the thing that came out afterwards was the guys denying that they actually resigned. But you're adamant that they actually did.
Well, I was in the room with all the other people in there, and the other 3 directors, along with myself, all heard what was said, and they resigned. And that's simple as that. Now, you can either resign verbally or you can resign in writing. And those guys resigned verbally, and we had to do something about that meeting. We hadn't got a chairman to carry on the meeting, so therefore we had to find a new chairman at that point in time. I mean, what we tried to do was get people around a table to discuss all this and get it sorted out without going public. It shouldn't go public. It was no need to go public. But unfortunately, 1 or 2 people, this was an opportunity to create a massive problem and cause mayhem in the club. And that's what happened. And they incited issues of people with banners and things like that, as you can remember, with my name all over it.
I do. I didn't have one, by the way.
I was very famous. Very short time.
Yeah, and luckily everybody spelt your name right, so that's a good thing. What I would say is, obviously, there was it was made a big thing at the time of Martin coming down on one particular side. Now, whether he was coerced into that, or whether that was his own choice, do you think that the perception of the 4 of you and the outcome would have been very different if Martin had have come down on the other side? Because obviously, you know, that as soon as he chose a side, it was very difficult for the other side to actually wield any power once the fans picked a side.
Right. The problem is that when I first met Martin, like the other 2 managers I met, I introduced myself, and I always said to the managers, I'm here to help you, support you, and you know, that's my role. And the other managers took me in with open arms and worked with me and very closely, and we were very, you know, got on very well together. But Martin had a different attitude, and his attitude was he didn't want to know me, and nothing to do with me, which I found that quite strange, because the guy never knew me, hadn't met me before, and didn't know of me. Only what I believe, in my personal view, is other people got to him before he got to the club and told him all about me and painted a very black picture. And that's all I can assume that went off, because I'd never met Martin O'Neill, and I'd never met Mark McGee, or never met Brian Little before. But I went to introduce myself with those 2, and they took to me very well. And in the book, they speak about me, which is quite kind of them. Martin had a different attitude, but I still went out my way to try and be friendly with Martin and talk to him and help him and support him, which I did. because if you can remember in the early days, Martin wasn't having very much success on the pitch in the first few matches, and everybody was calling for his head. Remember?
Yeah.
And I went into the car park to calm everybody down with one or two other directors to say, look, give the guy a chance. I mean, he's a great manager, a lovely guy. I just think he was fed some real poor information about me, and I think he got the wrong impression of me. But you know, if we had worked together, we would have been a very powerful force at Leicester. We really would have been a powerful force, because I was very successful off the pitch, and he was very successful on it. And together, we would have made a fantastic duo in turning that club, taking it even further. But it wasn't to be, because the powers that be behind the scenes wanted to keep us apart and make sure that we didn't speak or we didn't get on or whatever they wanted to do. And a lot of this was contrived behind my back in the club, and that's why things started to go wrong towards the end. I mean, don't forget, I had 8 years there of success and 4 years of problems, not caused by myself, but caused by other people who wanted to see the back of me and other directors. That's the problem that we had to face. Yes, Martin took the side of the chairman that he worked closely with, and fine, that's his shout. It's a shame that he never sat down and got to know me. It's a shame he didn't understand me. It's a shame that he got the wrong impression of me, because I think if he had, he might have thought differently at the time.
One of the things that was going on at the time, Barry, I would imagine, was talk behind the scenes of the formation of the Premier League. Were you and the club involved in that? And did that have any relevance in terms of people wanting to wield power or keep power as the game moved into a new world? Well,
the Premier League, we weren't involved in the initial formation of the Premier League, because we weren't in the Premier League at the time. I think we were in the Division 2. And the people in Division 1 at the time were the ones talking about the Premier League and the formation of it. So I don't think we got involved at that point. We got involved when we got promoted. But let me say this. The problem has been that this disruptive element in the club were always making statements behind my back that I wanted to get control of the football team and run it. Well, listen, I have no ambition of being a football manager, because I'm not. I'm a business guy. And when you've got professional managers there, like you've got Mark McGee and Brian Little, and in particular Martin O'Neill, what am I going to do but get in the way and interfere? Well, I didn't want to get in the way, and I didn't want to interfere. I was quite happy doing what I was doing, and this is why I feel it's, it all went particularly wrong, because that guy really was a great guy, and he did a lot for the club, but he didn't really understand me. And I think that's the problem, that was the wedge that was driven between us, because people kept saying that I was going to stick my nose in and take over and run the football team. I wasn't.
There was yeah. Obviously you have a love of football. Obviously marketing is your main thing. The same, I'm a marketing guy as well, but you have a love of football. And you then went on to Portsmouth. And I know there were reports a few years ago of you wanting to get involved in, dare I say, Forest. Was that true?
Well, when I left, when I was at Leicester, I had 3 approaches from Derby County to go to the baseball ground and help to build a new stadium for them. I turned that down. When I was there later on, I was asked to go to Coventry to help them build a new stadium for that. I turned that down. And then I was approached by Luton to go there and do something for them, and I turned that down. My loyalty was with Leicester City. Now, I had a job to do, and I wanted to see a new stadium being built before I decided to move on. Because after about 10 years, you need to do something different, have new challenges. And I wanted to do a 40,000-seater stadium, but I didn't get time to do that. When I left in 2000, I had 4 or 5 clubs approach me. I was going to work for Bristol City Football Club initially. And then, of course, Milan Mandrick, who used to own Leicester, contacted me and asked me to go to Portsmouth. I went there. So I was there for about a year's contract. Different club altogether, was received with open arms by the fans, a bit nervous, thinking how they're going to receive me. But, I had a year there nearly. And the back of the paper when I left was, or about to leave, was don't let Pierpoint go, which is quite strange to what I had when going out of Leicester, like get rid of Pierpoint. But when I was at Portsmouth, I've got the copy, and it's in the book as well. It's in the book. It talks about don't letting me go. You know, the Portsmouth fans are saying in that book at the end there, don't let Pierpoint go because they wanted me to stay there, which I thought was quite nice, really. I enjoyed my time there, but, you know, it wasn't to be. And then, of course, within seconds, I leave in there, I was at Bradford, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted
So
me.
Yeah. So was the truth? Was there any truth in you getting involved in Forest? Yeah, about 2016, I think it was.
I was trying to avoid that question because the club, actually, I was born in Nottingham, which is interesting. And there was lots of rumours flying around, lots of people printing things in the media, which is they're very good at that sort of thing, the media are. And yes, I was asked by the previous owner to send my CV in about going to Forest, which I did. And at the same time, Notts County also asked me to send my CV in as well, because I've been to see them twice after I left Leicester. Because Nottingham was my home, I was born there, my hometown. But they messed me about so much that I decided that if that's what they're going to do to me while I wasn't working there, what would they do when I got there? So I decided not to bother. You know, I could pick and choose. I was in demand, so you know, my attitude was, you know, it's a shame because I think I could have done a lot there as well.
Would you usually you get you get asked this if you're a manager or a player. Do you want to get back into football, Barry?
Well, you know, I've been out of it for about 15 years, I think, 10, 15 years. Although I do follow it, and I've still got all my faculties and skills. And you know, I think if the right challenge came along, I would look at it very seriously. Because one thing I like doing is turning football clubs around, especially the ones that are struggling, and the ones that have got no money, and the ones where I can make a difference. And that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy developing the off-the-field activities. I certainly like getting involved with the community. I mean, building the Carling stand was the biggest challenge for me. And then leaving the club with an £8 million commercial turnover. When I went there, it was about £500,000, I think it was. So 8 million is a lot of money in 8 years to raise. And you know, taking the club along with the team into the Premiership and all the other things that we did. Obviously, Fox Leisure was a new innovation that not many people were doing that sort of thing. Well, there weren't, none of them doing that sort of thing when I started at Leicester City, and all the other things that we created. It was a big money-making machine to put money into the football club to buy more players. Yes, I would take on a challenge if anybody came along and wanted to take my lovely services.
Well, unfortunately, I think there's quite a lot of clubs lower down the pyramid who are going to be struggling due to the state of COVID. So maybe you may get a few calls, Barry.
Listen, I'll help anybody. I'm one of these guys who's very transparent, very honest, and very open, and I will help anybody, and I'll do anything to help anybody. And you know, I stood in the middle of the car park when we were selling tickets through the night, and it was my idea to sell tickets through the night for Wembley. Can you remember when we were in the car park? People walking around, doing it at 12 o'clock. I got all the staff in, I got them out of bed, got them all in. I had cups of tea made for people and drinks, and people used to come up to me and say, "Barry, thank you very much." I mean, they were the better times. As I said, I had 8 years of good times with people who understood me. And even in the book, people are commenting about me in the book, which is nothing to do with me because I spoke to nobody. Matthew Mann, the guy who wrote the book for me, the ghostwriter, researcher, he talked to everybody. And it's not, I'm only telling my story in there, never mind anything else. So, yeah. I would do it, yes.
No, I'm sure it's a great read, Barry, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
It is. This guy Andy Meadows has said, "What would you say is your best moment at Leicester?" I think Premiership was 1, and building a Carling stand 2, and making a lot of money for the football club 3, because I left them with about £3 million in the pot, and 2 years later they went bust for about 30 million, I think, something like that. So sad. So sad.
Yeah.
Am I going in the camera?
Yeah. I could just sit and listen to this all night. I really could. It's
Well, I can tell you
I think once you
stories
get
about. I can tell you stories all night about what happened, but some of them are not I'm not able to tell on the screen.
I haven't got a good lawyer. I'm not rich. But thanks very much, Craig. I think football. We've said this often, me and Craig, haven't we? Football is the universal language. You know, you can be in the middle of nowhere, as I was up in North Norway, 2 miles inland, past the Arctic Circle, and had a Leicester scarf, and somebody was shouting at me. And if you talk in Leicester, that's it. I think we can be there for hours. But thanks so much for joining us. And let's just remind everybody. I'll just bring it up again here if I can find it here. The book is Minding My Own Football Business. I really do love that title. It's going to be available from the 7th of December. You can pre-order it now. Amazon, if that's your choice, or if you're looking across the bottom of the screen there, you can see the website where you can go on and order it direct. And am I right, Barry? Do you do signed copies?
Listen, if anybody wants me to sign a copy and put a message in there, I will do it willingly, and I am prepared to. It'll be a one-off. It'll never happen again. It'll be something that happened, in the 90s. It's never going to be repeated again, and I think it will be worth a lot of money in years to come. But I will put a message on, and I will sign it, and I'm happy to do that. I'm hoping in December. I'm trying to get some places to do some personal signings in front of people. But with the COVID situation, I've got to find if it's possible to do that, because I'd love to meet people face to face, and I'd love to sign the book in front of them and put the message in front of them. But at the moment, it's proving very difficult to get venues that will let you do that when we're bringing people. But I'm going to try, and I'll keep you posted if I do. But in the meantime, you order it online or order it anywhere, or I can give you my email address if you want me to.
Yeah, if you want to message me that on Facebook, and I can add that into the description on when it goes. It'll be on YouTube straight away, and I'll go on and I'll do a bit of editing, and I'll add the email there that people can contact you direct to order it. I think the thing that stood out for me tonight is I think you get a perception of people, and without actually talking to them. You see as we said, see what's in the paper, you see what's on the internet, and you think, yeah, that's what that guy's like. And I'm just having a look here because somebody said earlier, and I did bring it up earlier, saying, yes, one of them said you were a brilliant diplomat. Where was it now? There we go. And I think this kind of sums it up. You're much different to what I expected, Barry. And I think I'm really pleased tonight because there have been this. Sorry, Craig. Yeah, carry on.
I was going to say, I think that may be from Martin O'Neill.
I hope so. Well, that's very good. Well, you might be saying me.
They'd like to say he watch him. I don't think he does actually.
I'm only given a paint of the picture by what the media paint, and that's because people read what they read and what the media tell them to read, and that's the problem in life. If people met me in real life, I'm quite a different character. I'm very jovial, very honest, very open, very funny, very humorous, and I tell you what, I'll help anybody do anything. I really do, and I always have done. That's been my philosophy.
Well, I say it's been great having you. Thank you so much for coming on. And Barry, also, if you want to catch up with a bit more about Barry, if you go to the website, leicestertillidie.com, and look for the page Favourite Things, we have Barry's 5 favourite things, where, like I say, one of which was Steve Walsh was his favourite player. But like I say, you wouldn't argue with Steve, would you, Barry?
No, Steve and I got on very well. I mean, he's a great guy. We worked together very well. I appreciated him, and he appreciated me, and we were fine. And he's a great guy, and he's a great diplomat for the club as well. And I enjoyed him, and quite a lot of the other players as well. They were good guys. Great to work with them. Privileged to work with them as well.
Right. Well, I think we've got one more comment here. Everything's going, or the bronze plumber, which I presume is a plumber. Thanks, Barry and the guys. Thanks so much for watching. But stay safe. Like I say, now I'll put my teeth in. Let me have that email address, Barry, and I'll add that into the description afterwards. I think you're going to have 2 requests for signed books from us two here. Craig,
Definitely.
as always, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Craig, even if you did think you were the bad cop, but you were very, very diplomatic.
Listen, I was very honest and open, and I was happy to be honest and open, and nothing phases me at all. I'm very, very, very easygoing.
Brilliant.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Barry. That's great.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to you guys. Nice to talk to everybody else, and I'm here to help. Perhaps you'll invite me back in a few months' time later on next year, and I'll do a bit more for you. All right.
We'd love to have you back, and then I can ask you more about your book because I would have read it then.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
You should be buying the 4 kids a copy each.
I've only got one that's a Leicester fan, 2 are girls, they're more into boys at the moment, and the third one, he's just not into sports. But my oldest, he was always going to be a football fan, and I think Craig will back me up on this. You have your eldest, always a football fan, and it's always Leicester City.
That's good.
Quite right.
Pleased.
But yeah, you'll be more than welcome back anytime. Oh, there we go. This was Andy. He goes, Walsh never said that about you. I'm kidding.
You haven't. He hasn't, Andy. You haven't read the book. Read the book, and you'll see what Paul says about me. And I'm not kidding. I know you're only kidding. I can see that.
I think that's tongue in cheek. Knowing Andy as I do, that's tongue in cheek. But anyway, thanks very much, guys, and stay safe. And I'd love to have you back, maybe sort of like in the new year, Barry.
Okay. Well, can I just say, wish you all a very Merry Christmas. A bit early, but wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hope to see you all sometime in the future. Okay.
And to you as well. And all the adverts are on now for Christmas on the TV, so it's never too early. It's never too early. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care now.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Craig, and I'll see you next week when we're back to the Premier League.
Indeed, we are.
Yeah.
The real
Thanks
world.
so much. The real world. Take care, mate, and I'll speak to you then.
Cheers, Chris. Bye, everyone.
So, yeah, a great thanks for Craig for coming on and asking what he did. And a huge thank you to Barry. Like I say, I think you do get impressions, and as fans, we very much make decisions on what we read about managers, board members, owners, sack the board, and all this, that, and the other in the past. And players. And it's nice to get information from the horse's mouth. That the guy said there, not what I think a lot of us were expecting at all. Like I say, www.mindmyownfootballbusiness.com or Amazon, and it is out on the 7th of December. A great stocking filler and a great present for the Leicester fan who has everything. Well, have a good weekend, everybody. Like I say, won't be here. I think we're going to be doing a special, possibly Friday, but we'll let you know on that. Otherwise, we'll be back next Tuesday in time for the Liverpool game. A top of the table clash there. Stay safe, guys. Look after yourself. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Couldn't do it without you. And like I say, stay safe. Good night now.
Hey guys, Ian Hume here, X-Fox in the Box. Watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV and follow them on social media for all the up-to-date Leicester City news and information. Cheers.
Shut up and sit down.